What is the best whiskey for a whiskey sour? Is it a bourbon? Is it a Scotch? Or is it an Irish whiskey? I'm Matt, I'm the whiskey nerd, and today I'm going to be trying to answer that question because I'm going to be making 3 different whiskey sours with 3 different styles of whiskey. I've got my bourbon right here. This is the Wild Turkey 81 proof, and I'll come back to that in a second. Comes in at 40.5% alcohol by volume. It is a classic high rye bourbon. Very nice, very classic, kind of middle of the road, good bourbon profile. This right here is the Cardhu single malt Scotch whiskey. It's 12 years old, but it's like it's the Cardhu distillery. They don't make like peated smoky whiskey because smoky whiskey can sometimes be hard to use in a cocktail. So I wanted to find like an unpeated Scotch whiskey. So that's what I've got right here in an unpeated Scotch whiskey. And lastly, I've got Jameson Crested. This is like a good Irish blended whiskey. It has a good amount of grain whiskey and a large percentage of pot still Irish whiskey, which is the style of whiskey kind of unique to Ireland. You can only make it in Ireland. It was aged in sherry casks as well to give it a nice bit of rounded out profile. This comes in at 40%, this comes in at 40%, this comes in at 40.5%, and that's why I wanted to pick these ones as well. That's why I don't have the Wild Turkey 101, which is generally my go-to kind of whiskey or bourbon of choice when I'm making cocktails, but I wanted to say, look, I want them all to have like the same alcohol percentage. So I'm kind of removing all the variables by just saying I've got 40.5 or 81 proof, 80 proof, 80 proof, and just have the flavor of the whiskeys coming through. Now for me, for my whiskey sours, I think the kind of perfect ingredient ratio is 2-1-1. So for me, that's 2 parts whiskey, 1 part lemon juice, and 1 part sugar syrup with an egg white, some bitters, shake it up. Perfect and classic. So that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to make myself what I think is a good classic whiskey sour. Starting off with my bourbon, I'm going to get my shaker tin. I'm going to pop a nice rock of ice into there before measuring out my ingredients. Like I said, it's going to be 2-1-1, so that's 2 parts bourbon, or 2 ounces, or 60 ml of bourbon into my shaker tin before going in with my other ingredients. So for me, freshly squeezed lemon juice is always the best, so I've got my freshly squeezed lemon juice right here. I'm going to go in with 1 ounce. You can see it's got a nice amount of pulp in it because it is nice and fresh, and that's going to give us a really bright flavour to the cocktail. Next up, I've got my sugar syrup. I'm going to go in with, again, 30 ml, or 1 part, or 1 ounce of my sugar syrup into there before going in with my egg white. Now I've already pre-separated out my egg white. If you wanted to, what you could do, just break the egg and you kind of pour the yolk between the two and it separates out and the egg yolk falls through. But for me, I've already pre-separated out. So in there with my egg yolk into there, that'll give us a really nice foamy head on our cocktail. And then lastly, it is going to be my bitters. For me, the salt and pepper of bitters are your Angostura and your orange bitters. You don't have to get Angostura orange, but you can get whatever orange bitters you want. For me, 2 dashes of Angostura and 1 dash of orange bitters in a whiskey sour comes through really well. It gives it this nice bit of flavour to the cocktail, gives it a nice bit of seasoning almost, but then the orange gives it a little bit more citrus and just keeps it nicely balanced. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to make 3 of these. So I'm going to shake this up nice and quick, and then I'll pour it out and then I'll make my other 2 cocktails. Okay, I think this is nicely chilled now, so I'm going to bang the top off my cocktail shaker and get ready to strain it out. I'm going to be straining it out into a coupe glass. So I'm going to pop my Hawthorne strainer up top just to catch that ice and just pour it away just like that. Now I'm going to fast forward. I'm going to let this settle over here for a second. I'm going to fast forward and make the other cocktail. So I'll be back in a second. Now, while we wait for the Irish one to finish settling, if you're new here, scroll down, hit that thumbs up button, hit that subscribe button. I put out whiskey reviews every Wednesday, including reviews of all these whiskies. I put out cocktail recipes every Friday, and every now and then I put out videos like this on Monday where I compare different whiskies or use different whiskies in different cocktails to see what one is the best and to kind of talk a little bit about whiskey or the whiskey business. So if you want to see more like that, make sure you hit subscribe and leave me a note in the comments below and say what kind of video you think I should make in future. But for now, while we wait for the Irish one to settle, let's start with the first cocktail, our bourbon whiskey sour. These should all be identical, with the only difference being the whiskey. So let's see how different a flavour they all give. Cheers. Okay, immediately when you bring it up, you know it's bourbon, because bourbon has this kind of almost oaky, cinnamon, peanut brittle. It has this really nice, different kind of flavour. It has this oaky char, has that really nice, spicy kind of note to it. So when you bring it up, as those little bubbles up top, as they're bursting, you actually do get like the bourbon flavour. Like if I were to just hold my nose over it, yeah, I can get the little bit, as those bubbles are bursting, little bits of like bourbon air or bourbon gas is coming up, and you can definitely taste the kind of bourbony note, which is really nice in a whiskey sour, because the bit of sugar, the bit of like the lemon juice, the egg white, which is like kind of cancels out some of the bitterness you get with the lemon juice, just makes this nice sweet little profile. But let's go in for the Scotch, the Cardhu 12-year-old single malt Scotch. Cheers. Okay, much milder on the approach. So immediately up front, I was just getting, as I brought it up to my nose, whereas for the bourbon, I was getting like the bourbony notes. Here, I was just getting the whiskey sour notes, like the lemon, the sugar, that kind of flavouring note coming through, the bitters. When I tasted it, again, it was bitter, sugar, lemon. And then when I swallowed it, I got the whiskey came through. Like it's a Scotch, so it's going to be like a little bit kind of rounded caramel, butterscotch, biscuits, but also almost like a little bit herbal, a little bit botanical note coming through. Yeah, I think with here, the bourbon is present all the way through. With here, the Scotch is present more on the end. But let's go in for the Irish. Now that it's finished settled, I can see one of my egg whites was probably a little bit bigger than the other, so I've got a bigger head on it. But the cocktail itself should be the same. Cheers. Much fruitier, because again, this is the only one that had sherry cask in it. This is much fruitier. When I brought it up to my nose, I was getting whiskey, but not as strong as with the bourbon. When I tasted, I was getting the whiskey. And then on the finish, I got almost like a fruity flash from that sherry cask, but still with that whiskey coming through. So I'm going to go in again, taste them all, maybe in different order, and come back to you in just a second. Okay, I think I have like what I would say. So I think the Scotch is the worst. It's not bad. I mean, it's a whiskey sour. It's going to be nice. My favorite kind of cocktail is a whiskey sour, but I think it doesn't have as much of a weight or presence or depth to it. Like it comes in at the end, so it feels like the whiskey and the cocktail are separate, whereas in here I think they're a little bit more aligned. So I went back and forth between them, and I think they're different. I think they're both equally nice. I think this here is a bourbon sour and this here is a whiskey sour, if that makes sense, because if you want to taste just like the cocktail, the plain whiskey sour cocktail, Irish whiskey is going to give you the flavour, it's got the whiskey, it's going to come through, it's going to give you the lemon juice, it's going to give you the sugar, it's going to give you that with the whiskey. Here, the bourbon's more apparent. So if you are a bourbon drinker and you want a whiskey sour and you want to be able to taste the bourbon, here it's more of like a, yeah, that's probably a better way of saying it. This here is a whiskey sour and this here is a whiskey sour. So it depends on what you want. I think for me, I like my whiskey sour, so I think I'd go for the Irish because I'm kind of used to that flavour, but the bourbon I think is fantastic. I think it works. So even though it is only at 40.5%, I think it still carries a lot of flavour, carries a lot of weight, and I think it's just really nice. I think they're both very good, slightly different vibes, but I think both equally good. So if you have a favourite kind of whiskey for a cocktail, let me know down in the comments below. I'm definitely going to enjoy these two. I'm probably going to enjoy this one, and I will see you next time. Sláinte.